For me, really, I feel that decent jobs for our youth, for me, really resonate with the dignity, but also the quality of the job. What I mean by this, I mean, for me as a young person, I'm looking for the type of employment whereby I'm getting enough income that can meet all my basic needs and necessities. I should not struggle to for healthcare issues. I should not struggle to pay a medical bill. I'm looking at that type of employment, but at the same time, I'm also looking at the work environment that I'm working in. Is it safe enough? At the same time, what are the working conditions? Are they structured working hours? Because I've heard a lot of things about working conditions whereby people are locked in a room to work for the whole night. Is that conducive for me? So
a decent work is having a symbiotic relationship between me and my employer, being able to I need to be confident that if I give my best in terms of performance, in terms of commitment and my time and all, the organization on its own part takes into cognizance of the effort I have put in to sustain that business, and as well reciprocates by providing me the things that are due to my benefits to my efforts that I have put in. I want it to be like a win-win situation.
The definition of decent work is about, like in general, it's about opportunities for work which are productive and deliver a fair income. It's about also security in the workplace, and also we can include what we call social protection for families. Also, it could be about social integration, better prospects for personal development, freedom to express the concerns, and so on. So it's a whole thing. But for Tunisia, I think most of it is about productivity and hope.
It's a very difficult question to answer, actually. It's not as simple yes or no. I can say technically that it's impossible to have decent jobs in the informal economy, since it's in doubt whether we have decent jobs in the formal economy in the first place. So what happens is, when you look at the people in the formal economy, there's an overlap with they have low level of education and low access to technology. And so what we see is that informality is actually a trap.
I would not say that decent work is only possible in the formal sector. There are people that are able to secure decent livelihoods through the informal sector, and vice versa. As one of the other participants has commented, where even in the formal sector, there are those that are struggling to get decent work. Let me elaborate a little bit my thinking. So if we look at the in terms of, can you get a source of income in the informal sector that's able to sustain your livelihood, that's a fair income? I think the answer is yes. There are many youth that are able to employ themselves, because the majority of the work in the informal sector in Tanzania is as self-entrepreneurs, micro-entrepreneurs, and there are some that are able to earn an income that allows them to meet their basic needs. Of course, this being the minority of the case. And I think the challenge comes, if looking at decency, is if we only look at it from the lens of formal institutions. For example, is it the case that for somebody to have a safety net, we need to be thinking the same formal mindset of having a formal state-run social protection system? Because perhaps no, maybe in our context that is not very effective as it is at the moment, and that's why you have a lot of, I think, informal ways of people generating or accessing decent work, and you have those things like the informal saving groups.
Well, the availability of opportunities when it comes to job, I think, depends on a lot of factors. But then one predominant one is access to education. Because I think it's well known that the more educated you are, the more economic opportunities that are available to you. Unfortunately, in our parts of the world, I think that women and girls are at a disadvantage when it comes to that. This goes on to affect the kind of jobs that are available to them in the future.
So the government is doing a lot to promote the involvement of women. although to some extent, I would say it's slowly starting to affect the men in the country, in that instead of it being women empowerment or gender balance, it's actually now turning into what we call segregative discrimination. It's positive discrimination.
There are differences when it comes to decent work for both men and women, but then it depends on from which angle are you looking at these differences. We have very many companies in Uganda that don't give that security to women. You know, when we are talking about maternity leave, I have experienced this, and I have people that have stories that they lost their jobs when they went for maternity leave.
I think with both questions, yes, the increasing gender inequalities and the effect of COVID-19 had influence to all of our lives, but it had impacted on women and men differently. We see an increased number of involvement of women over and above their jobs and decency, but we see increased workload at home, only due to the fact that we are to work at home, and this is a new norm. And in fact, where we see it, and most of the researches already indicate inability of women to perform better in their jobs while working from home, because they have to cater for the entire family.
One is of course entrepreneurship, increasing the entrepreneurship, as we're here entrepreneurs, but we need more entrepreneurs to give job to employed youth. And then second is more trainings on the gender pay gap. Though we are entrepreneurs, but some of us don't know there is a gender pay gap, so we need to be trained, understand why is that the challenge, and why every single employer should treat the employees equally and pay them depending on how much of work they are delivering. And last but not least, we need to maybe this could be for the government and public sector, as already said earlier. We need to have clear policy for the informal sector,